Hello, my name is Nairi, this is Fly Little Birds, and today we're going to talk about abandonment issues, particularly with adopted children. So I've got two adopted sons who are now 13 and 14, and we've just had a new baby in the family, so I'm going to discuss how that's impacted them. So leading up to having the new baby, I did notice that one of my sons in particular just seemed to be a little bit out of sorts, and to be honest, I didn't really work out that it was to do with this. It could have been many things. Lots of things bother them. It could have been to do with friendships. It could have been that I wasn't brilliantly well at the time and I thought maybe it was that. But as time went on, I thought, no, actually I do think it could well be this baby on the way. And my daughter went overdue with the baby. And I'm sure you can understand that my sons don't understand how it works with due dates, and we're expecting the baby to come on the day and then the baby didn't come. And what I noticed with both of them actually, but one in particular, is he kept asking me, has the baby come yet? Is the baby coming? When will the baby come? What will happen when the baby comes? And after a while, I started to work out that he was bothered by the whole thing. And eventually sat down with him and asked him what the issues were. And he just said something like, and also at the same time, I'd noticed he'd been a little bit off with my other grandsons who are quite young, particularly the youngest, and he'd been quite negative around the younger one. And I said to him, what's going on? And he said, well, I didn't have my mum. I couldn't have my mum. And was sort of inferring that my other grandsons have got their mum around, and the new grandson that we now have will have his mum around, and that he wasn't able to have the same. So we had to sit down and talk about those things quite a lot. I had to reassure him that regardless of that situation, that I've been like a mum to him, and that we can't wind back the clock. My husband also had this conversation with him, saying that we can't put right what's happened before, and we can only move forward from where we are. Now, we've had these conversations with him quite a lot of times, and he does understand what happened with his original family and why he couldn't stay with them. And we don't get targeted by him per se that we're on the full blame game. He doesn't look at us and blame us entirely for what's happened, but sometimes he just gets triggered. This is the thing that you'll find with adopted children that have gone through childhood trauma, so foster children as well, is they get triggered and they can't always put into words what it is that's bothering them. And so as time goes on, then my daughter has the baby. And there's two sides of that. That is, I've got 5 adult children, and my sons did miss those children as they grew up and came into adulthood and started with their own relationships and families. As one by one left the house, they really struggled with that, because I had my sons from young as foster children, and then we eventually adopted them. So they came into a family with 5 adult children, all there for them. I think possibly one was away at uni, but part of the family. And then gradually, one by one, they leave and they start their own families, they have their own homes. And my eldest son really did struggle with that, and still sometimes does struggle with that, and misses particularly my adult son. So there were 2 aspects to this, I believe, around abandonment and trauma and being triggered. The first is my daughter going to be okay? Being that they love my children as their own siblings, and so is my daughter going to be okay? Because I think my boys are of an age now, they realise that childbirth can be tricky, can be painful, and they know enough to know that possibly it could be dangerous. So that's the first thing bothering them, is my daughter actually going to be okay? And how are they going to know if my daughter's going to be okay? Because they're probably not going to see her just before, during, or just after. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is this real pull and draw for the youngest one to just clap eyes on that baby. Now, my daughter, I think, is quite wise in the sense that she has not wanted to be inundated with people coming to visit her. And I think that's good, because I don't know what it's like where you are, but in the UK, if you have what you call a straightforward birth, I would question whether it was, because, partway through there were some quite traumatic events, but to all intents and purposes, a normal birth. So she had the baby around about 1 o'clock in the morning. By 7 o'clock that morning, she was home. So I can understand why she's saying, do you know what? I don't want loads of visitors right away. Completely get that. Now, from the minute that that baby was born, my younger son in particular was asking several times a day, when are we going to see the baby? When are we going to see the baby? Now, to be honest, my daughter's only really got me involved and partly my husband a little bit, and she's got lots of siblings, so it was a really difficult, because I couldn't imagine her wanting necessarily the boys to be the first ones to get in there and actually spend any time with the baby. So but he wouldn't be appeased. He would not be appeased, and he kept coming back round to, well, why can't we see him? And I really believe that it is around the abandonment issues, in the sense that he wants to see that the baby's okay. He wants to see that my daughter is okay, and he wants to see that connection between baby and my daughter, that it's all right, that everything's okay. And my sons were very neglected when they were born. They went through an awful lot, and some of the issues around when they were younger and babies were very much that they wouldn't have been receiving the level of care they needed, and they wouldn't have been given the level of interaction and attachment that you would expect to happen when a baby's born. And incidentally, the sweetest thing when you look on a genuine attachment between a mother and a baby is incredible, and being able to enjoy just watching that with my daughter. And by the way, if you haven't looked at the option of membership on my channel, then please check that out. There's different levels for you, and check out my channel and see if it's something you're interested in. So yeah, finally we persuaded my daughter. I don't know that that was the right thing to do, but it was just driving us mad that we were constantly being asked. So finally, we had some dinner to take around, and my husband said, message my daughter, I know it's a big ask, but they're desperate to see this baby. Can they just pop in and just literally have a look at him? And she said yes. Whew, I was really pleased about that. So they went round, and my husband said it was just absolutely adorable. It was just so sweet, the reaction that they both had. And I was waiting at home because I'd spent a lot of time with them already. And my son came straight up to the room upstairs where I was, and he said, Mum. I went, yeah. He said, that baby is just so adorable. And I just thought, oh, that's so lovely. He said, he's so soft. And he was talking about the characteristics of his face, because I would say the baby has got quite some babies have got different types of face. He's got an older type of face, and his skin's very smooth, and he was like, oh, he's got this type of face, and he's really good. And this is where the actual sign was there that this is all about triggering and the feeling of abandonment, that he's still feeling after all these years. He said, and he didn't cry very much. He wasn't crying all the time. And yeah, because I remember when we were looking after our other grandson, when my other daughter wasn't available, and he was quite young, and we had to just sort of jump in and suddenly look after him, that my adopted sons were really bothered by the crying. Really bothered. I mean, babies cry, don't they? But they were really stressed by it. And we were, because we were having to jump in and look after him unexpectedly. But the one thing I think my younger son in particular, wanted to see was that this baby was content, was looked after, and that somehow that mother-child baby bond was good, was wholesome. And it was just at peace then. They were both at peace. They were only there for about 10 minutes. And do you know what? I have not been asked again. I've not been asked again. And they didn't even hold him. Most people, when they see new babies, they want to spend a bit of time there. They want to hold the baby, coo over the baby. Not these two. They just needed to go in and see that my daughter was all right, probably that the house was reasonable, and that this baby was content. And then they were happy. And if you are an adoptee and you're watching this, then you will understand that feeling that it's always deep down inside of something not quite being right, and that you may well be triggered by family situations that are either very negative, so if you see a neglectful family situation that might trigger you, but also very blissful can also trigger, because you long and want maybe that was you back along, and that it couldn't be you. And so I think it's really just useful for us to remember that our children go through a lot if they're adopted or fostered, or they've gone through significant separation during childhood. And it's just for us to try and, you know, work out using our curiosity, which, if you've not seen my last video, it's all about curiosity and therapeutic parenting. It's just for us to work out what it is that's bothering them and try to fill the gaps in for them. I think over time, my boys will get used to the fact that there's going to be additional babies in the family, being that I've got 5 older children, and that several of them are daughters, and so I'll be playing an active role, probably, you know, helping them. It's not easy for them, it's not easy for the boys. There's a significant gap between my younger child and them as adopted sons, but hopefully as more babies come into the family, they'll get used to the idea that they're not the odd ones out. They're not different, and this is what I try to emphasize with my younger son, that regardless of what's happened, I'm still, you know, to all intents and purposes acting like that mother would have in the beginning, providing for them in the way that that mother would in the beginning, or should have in the beginning, and that if they had been born to me, that I would have been dealing with things appropriately and making sure that they were safe and well. So hope you found that useful. Hope you've enjoyed that update on my family situation. Check out my channel, and I'll see you on Fly Little Bird. Thank you.